Bonjour, welcome to Read Feet. Bienvenue. Today I'm going to be talking about Lunch in Paris, and it is by Elizabeth Bard, who is an American, and you can tell by the cover that it has recipes. I love books with recipes. It's a little bonus and a little taste of their world, which I absolutely adore, and I'm going to try out some of these good stuff. Some of them, I don't know, it seems a little too interesting for my palate, but you never know. I might get older and more adventurous. So this is by Elizabeth Bard, who is an American journalist based in France. She has written about art, travel, and digital culture for the New York Times, the International Herald Tribune, Wired, Time Out, and the Huffington Post. She makes a mean chocolate souffle. She also has an epilogue in this book, so it doesn't leave you hanging about what happened to the main characters, how their life has progressed. A little flavor of this book, I will read you the chapter 1 title. It is Coffee, Tea, or Me? And the second chapter is An Affair to Remember. And April in Paris. So if you are watching this in April, you might want to pick this book up because it is simply great, and you can actually read it in the springtime, which is fun. There are, 22 chapters, and they have an epilogue, which is really great. Again, since it is talking about Paris, they do tell you locations, and yes, there is a little bit of French that is written down. I almost said spoken. So you might want to have Google Translator if you don't know how the words are said, but you want to hear what they sound like. You can always do that. Always open if you have the technology to do that. What is cool is that her recipes are not confined to the back of the book. They are actually at the end of each chapter. There's at least one recipe to kind of have you try it out and enjoy. So you kind of get the flavor of it after every chapter, which I think is a great way to add. And let's see. Here's a good quote. Maybe it's the way the French hold the knife and fork. They never put them down, making it impossible to read a magazine or talk on the phone while you eat. You must concentrate, smile to yourself, or you can cry. I've seen that too. Either way, you are a spectacle. So she's talking about French women eating in Paris. Even if they are alone, they are still probably being watched, and they should maybe react accordingly, which I think is a cool thing. If you're eating alone, you're not necessarily unhappy, but again, you have the permission to cry. The French are beginning to work longer hours, but le déjeuner remains sacred. I know what you're thinking. Where in God's name do they find time to take an hour, maybe more, in the middle of the workday for something as gracious, as old-fashioned as a sit-down lunch? I think that's great. Sometimes we want to speed through meals with our culture and maybe like turn on the TV and just eat. And maybe it's, you need to, maybe these books are teaching me, you can savor things. You don't have to rush through them. It is okay. I like that she has an index to recipes in case you get lost. I wrote down a lot of quotes from this book because they are brilliant. Let's see. We all sipped crisp white wine and slurped the briny mollusk, clinking glasses and speculating about the wonderful smells coming from the kitchen. I happen to really like this quote as she finds a Frenchman, Elizabeth Bard does, and that is actually the author. It is the author's story. She goes to Paris, has lunch in Paris, and meets her Frenchman, and they do end up getting married. I'm not really spoiling anything there, but it is quite nice, and she, as a new bride, goes, I turned the word over my tongue like a hard candy, shiny and formal on the outside, liquid and sentimental in the center. Husband. I have a husband. It sounded, yes, it sounded even weirder in French. Je vais chercher mon femme. I think that might be her guy calling her wife. But anyway, it is a really fun book and there are really fun recipes. So if you're in the mood to cook, then totally pick up this book. If you're in the mood to read something from Paris, you totally can. It is, I think it's funny, the last two authors that I talked about with the Paris books, last two, this is the second one, they both include they both include recipes, which is great. And yes, and you have completely distracted me, Monsieur Kitty. He's so sweet and distracting. He's a very good lap warmer. Is this the way we are going to end the video? Maybe it is. So if you really want to enjoy a book of a different flavor, you might want to pick up Lunch in Paris, a love story with recipes. Elizabeth Bard, you did a wonderful job, and I loved learning about New York culture as well as Paris culture. So thank you for that. And the book was a little bit of nostalgia for me because she speaks about her youth, and I don't think we're that, well, she is a decade and a couple of years older than me, but it is quite fun. And yes, it is great. It is a love story. How am I gonna end this? You're right here. You're right here, Monsieur Kitty. This has been Read Feed. Read Feed. Oh, goodness. Yes, it has been Read Feed. It has been fun. And this little boy just wants some love. So if you're in the mood for the Paris food and book, pick up Lunchtime in Paris by Elizabeth Bard. You're being strange.